Hey, sewing friends, Chelsea here from Sew Simple Home. We have a fun project today that's really quick. This is also a really great project for young adults and children and any book lovers. So today we're going to make a button elastic bookmark. So it will go over the book and stretch, and it's just a really fun project for everyone. So some things you're going to need today. You're going to need some cotton fabric. You need about 18 inches long by 2.5 inches wide. You need a button, and then you need some elastic, and you don't need very much. You need about 3 inches of 1/4 inch elastic. So I have my big roll here. We'll just cut a little bit out of it here in a second. And that's pretty much it. One other tool that you'll need besides your sewing machine is maybe a safety pin, unless you have a bodkin, which you can use to turn your bookmark inside out. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to cut our fabric. And I have, move that out of the way, I have my cutting mat here, and I have this fun kind of floral fabric. And what I'm going to do just to start out, to make it a little bit easier, is I'm just going to cut a chunk out of it. Now you need an 18-inch piece, and so my mat here goes to 12 inches, so I'm just going to add the additional 6 inches to that to make mine 18 inches long. And I'll just put it here. Now you notice that this isn't like completely the most accurate way to do things, but it definitely still works. And then you need this piece to be about 2.5 inches wide. So I am actually going to trim it once just to make everything nice and straight. And then I'll do my 2.5 inch cut. Oops. Let's go this way just so that 1, 2.5, about right there. Okay, so here is my 18-inch by 2.5 inch strip. Now I'm going to go ahead and press it to start with, and I'm just going to use my cute little Cricut Easy Press Mini. I get questions about this one all the time. This is one of my favorite sewing tools. It's not even typically or really meant for sewing projects like this, but it works phenomenally. So this is the Cricut Easy Press Mini, and I'll leave a link down in the description so that you can grab one for yourself. All right, so I have my 18-inch long by 2.5 inch wide bookmark piece here. So now what I'm going to do, bring my sewing machine closer here. So now I'm going to take it and I'm going to fold it in half, matching the long sides, hot dog style, if you will. And I'm going to stitch down that side. I'm going to forward and back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So that means the thread is right at the edge of that bookmark. So super easy. Nice straight stitch. Now if you are teaching someone to sew and they haven't quite figured out how to sew straight, which is totally normal, we all start there. You could fold this in half first and press it so that the fabric stays in place, and then it's easier to stitch on the machine and they don't have to match those ends. You can also use pins to pin it in place, right? You can put your pins in, or if you use clips, for someone starting out, that sometimes is a lot easier when you're sewing on something that's so thin. All right, that was really simple, wasn't it? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our safety pin here, and we're going to loop it through, or pin it through one side, and then we're going to turn it. Oh, I pinned it the wrong way. Hang on. And then we're going to turn it so that it goes inside, so that we can push our material through to the opposite side. So we're going to turn it right side out. Okay, and this does take a little bit of work, especially if it's the first time. Anytime you have to make something that you have to turn around, it can be a little frustrating. This one isn't super thin though, so it shouldn't be really difficult. So I turned it right side out, and I'm just going to fix my edges so they are nice and turned. And then I'm going to take my iron again, and there's a couple ways you can do this. You can press your seam in the center, like I'm doing here. You can press it in the center, so when you put it on your book, for your bookmark, you don't have a seam showing. It's going to be like this. Okay? Or technically, I guess if the button's on the outside, it's going to be like this. Okay? So that's one way of doing it. Or you can press the seam all the way to the side, so it's like a side seam. Either of those methods are going to work. It just depends on your preference of where you want the seam. It's not going to hurt either way on this one. Now the next thing that we're going to do, we're still going to iron, but we are actually going to turn the raw edges of both sides of our tube to the inside of the tube here. And we're going to only turn them about 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, doesn't have to be very much. And it can be a little tricky, and sometimes it helps if you use like a pair of scissors or something to kind of make everything lay flat, to push things together. But this part right here, I would highly suggest you use an iron to really press it flat so that you know everything's even and everything's out of the way and won't move when you actually use or put the elastic on here in just a sec. So make sure you press those corners in like that. Get them as straight as you can. Again, it's kind of a tricky thing, and that's all right. Just like that. Okay. Now this is a fun project just because it really is so simple. Like it's not hard. This is almost the extent of all the sewing that we're gonna do. So this makes a great gift too, like for teachers or friends, or a gift to book lovers, whatever. Okay, we're gonna cut a 3-inch piece of our elastic here. So I have my little piece of elastic here, just 3 inches, and I'm just gonna fold it in half, matching those raw edges. So it just kind of looks like that. And it's gonna go inside my piece here. And we're only gonna go in so about 1 inch shows on the outside. Then we're gonna put it in our machine and just sew across and all the way back. Okay, so the thread's in place, and then it just makes sure that that elastic's not going to move. So that's the one side. Now on the opposite side, we're gonna put a button, and I have 2 buttons here. This one I think is just a little too big, so I'm gonna use this one, and this is a, let's make sure. Ooh, I'm using, this one's a 3/4 inch button. You could use a 1/2 inch button. I wouldn't go lower than the 1/2 inch. And I just have to show you my big button bin. Here's all my buttons in here. Lots and lots of buttons. So I just found one that matches. So I always do this with buttons because you know you get extra buttons a lot of times with shirts or pants or things that you might buy from the store. Or if you're doing a craft and they give you some buttons but you never use them. So I always keep my buttons, and I just put them in my button bin because you just never know when you're going to need them. So to do a button, you can do 2 things. You can sew it on your machine, and I will leave a link down in the description to our button sewing tutorial that's on the blog so that you can kind of check out the different ways that you can sew on a button. You can use your machine. If you can drop your feed dogs, that's what you want to do. On my machine, I don't really have a good method to drop my feed dogs. But you're going to put it in your machine. So you'll have your fabric here, your button here, and then you slip it into your machine, and you set your machine on a zigzag, and then you see where your needle, use your hand wheel to move your needle down into the button and then back out. And then I go back and forth about 6 or 7 times, and then I pull those threads long. So make sure you drop your feed dogs though, so that it doesn't feed through your machine. And you can check your manual to see if you have a good method to drop those feed dogs. Then the next thing you're gonna do is thread those top threads of your button into a needle and push them through your material to the wrong side. Like that. So you pull all of your threads to the wrong side of the button. So all the threads on the front are now on the back. Now you can also make a shank. I did not do that this time. If you go to our button tutorial, it'll show you how to add the shank, and I didn't this time. Maybe I should have, since we're using elastic, but it's gonna work out. And now I'm just tying the threads on the back in a square knot, and then we'll just trim them. And again, you can hand sew this if you don't want to use your machine. I just like using my machine because it's a little bit faster. So I have my button on and my elastic. Now we plop the two of them together like so, and I've made a bookmark. So I can open up my book here to whatever page I'm on, and then wrap my bookmark around, and I'm ready to go. And that's how you make a button bookmark. It's a great way to mark your place in your book, obviously, but it's also a kind of a unique way, instead of having to find, you know, what my favorite is like a receipt from Walmart, right, that you stick in your book as your bookmark. But you could make several of these, and when you start a book, you can say, oh, I'm going to put my bookmark on my book right now, and then it's on your book whenever you need it. Now this bookmark is great for thin books like this one. You have a nice, you know, thin chapter book, especially a children's book. This bookmark elastic's going to look really great for that. If you have a much thicker book, if you read really thick books, you may need to increase the length of your elastic to 4 inches or maybe 5 inches if you like to read much larger books. But that's something you might have to experiment depending on what kind of books that you read. But the process is the same whether you lengthen the elastic or not. But that is how you make a button elastic bookmark. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. Let me know if you've tried something similar to this and how it went for you. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Leave them down in the comments, and make sure that you check out the description so you can get the full photo tutorial if it's easier for you to follow, along with a list and links to the products that we've used. And we will see you guys next time.